There's two behind here.
These small flashing lights in the night sky over New Jersey are causing quite a stir, especially among residents who have reported seeing similar unidentified drones.
I've never seen anything like it. It's just a drone on steroids.
The phenomenon has sparked conspiracy theories and demands from lawmakers and some state officials for investigations into what's soaring overhead on the East Coast. Since November, hundreds of people have shared photos and videos online similar to this one. The majority of reported sightings have come from New Jersey, but people in Maryland, Virginia, Massachusetts, and New York have reported seeing them as well.
There's something called a parallax effect.
But Scott Schofman, with the Association for Uncrewed Vehicle Systems International, says eyes can play tricks on people at night.
I think a lot of the aircraft you're seeing are traditional planes and helicopters in normal air traffic, or satellites or stars. I think that having flown drones at night, you have to understand that the eyes that you have can play tricks on you. So something may look like it's slow moving or hovering just because it's really so far away, or it's at an angle that's how it presents.
The White House and the FBI have said the objects pose no threat. Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas said in a recent interview that there was no question New Jersey residents were seeing some drones, though he said at least some of the sightings were of manned aircraft. He suggested the increased activity could reflect a 2023 change in an FAA rule to allow nighttime flying of drones. New York Governor Kathy Hochul called on Congress to enact stricter rules for drones, while New Jersey Governor Phil Murphy asked President Joe Biden for more resources to investigate the sightings. President-elect Donald Trump said the U.S. military should tell the American public about the nature of the drone sightings.
Our military knows and our president knows, and for some reason they want to keep people in suspense.
Some lawmakers have suggested that foreign countries could be dispatching the drones.
The fact that these are often near coast suggests that maybe sometimes they're shipborne drones.
Michael O'Hanlon is a senior fellow at the Brookings Institution. He says that while the drone sightings merit further review, many could be pranks.
We don't really know what's going on. My guess is there are a lot of pranksters and individual operators who are Americans who are just doing this to see what they can do with their little technology they bought down at some Radio Shack. But we can't rule out the possibility of substantially more concerning kinds of foreign action, and we're going to have to learn more. We really are finding ourselves underprepared even to understand what's happening.
An international war crimes prosecutor says evidence emerging from mass grave sites in Syria is exposing a state-run machinery of death under toppled leader Bashar al-Assad. Stephen Rapp visited 2 mass grave sites in the country. This one is in Naja, near Damascus. Rapp said he estimates more than 100,000 people were tortured and murdered since 2013.
We heard from a witness who testified in Germany and whom I personally interviewed and we personally worked with for a long period of time with satellite imagery, that at this particular cemetery where he had been one of the administrators, he was called into service by the government in 2012 in order to begin the mass burial of persons that had been killed in government custody.
A cemetery guard and a farmer who lives nearby both described seeing refrigerated trucks at the site. The guard said there were large pits for bodies, as well as graves that would hold about half a dozen people. The other site visited by Rapp is in Qataifa, where people declined to speak on camera or use their names for fear of retribution, saying they were not sure the area was safe yet after Assad's fall. One called it a, quote, place of horrors. This satellite imagery analyzed by Reuters showed large-scale digging began at the location between 2012 and 2014 and continued up until 2022. The head of U.S.-based Syrian advocacy organization, the Syrian Emergency Task Force, has estimated at least 100,000 bodies were buried in Qataifa alone. The International Commission on Missing Persons separately said it had received data indicating there may be as many as 66, as of yet unverified, mass grave sites in Syria. more than 157,000 people have been reported missing to the commission. Rapp led prosecutions at the Rwanda and Sierra Leone war crimes tribunals. He told Reuters that in Syria, quote, thousands of people were working in this system of killing, and that nothing has been seen like this since the Nazis.
Every family seems to be affected by a disappearance, and they cry out for answers about what happened to their child. There's still faint hopes that somebody could be found alive.
Hundreds of thousands of Syrians are estimated to have been killed since 2011, when Assad's crackdown on protests against his rule grew into a full-scale civil war. Syrians, rights groups, and other governments accuse Assad and his father of widespread extrajudicial killings. Assad had repeatedly denied that his government committed human rights violations and painted his detractors as extremists. A lightning offensive by rebels ended more than 5 decades of iron-fisted rule by his family.
Nissan and Honda are planning an alliance. A Reuters source says the two firms are in talks to establish a joint holding company. That would allow them to share more resources as competition heats up in the auto industry. Nissan shares surged on the news, jumping more than 20% in early trade on Wednesday. Honda didn't fare so well, however, sliding around 3%. The talks were first reported by the Nikkei newspaper. An alliance would allow two of Japan's biggest automakers to cooperate over technology as the shift to electric vehicles reshapes the industry. It wasn't immediately clear whether a full union was the ultimate plan, though the Nikkei reports that merger talks were underway. On Tuesday, the two firms released identical statements saying that no merger had been announced, but they admitted to exploring various possibilities for future collaboration. Over the past year, an EV price war launched by Tesla and Chinese rival BYD has made it harder for other firms to make money on the zero-emission vehicles. The industry has also faced stalling demand for electric cars in the US and Europe, and Japan's big exporters all now face the looming prospect of sweeping tariffs under a new Trump administration. Any deal would be the industry's biggest since the $52 billion merger of Fiat Chrysler and PSA in 2021. Honda and Nissan have already deepened ties, agreeing earlier to work together on batteries and other technology. Nissan may be more in need of a helping hand, after saying last month that half-year earnings were down over 90%. Its market capitalization is about $10 billion after Wednesday's surge, or less than a quarter of Honda's.
Spilled oil has washed up along tens of kilometres of the Russian Black Sea coast after 2 tankers were badly damaged in a storm at the weekend, a regional official said on Tuesday. TASS news agency said a third ship was now in trouble, but its hull was intact and no oil had spilled. There are fears it could become one of the largest environmental disasters to hit the region in years. The first ship, the Volga-Neft 212, split in half on Sunday in the strait, leaving 1 crew member dead. The second, the Volga-Neft 239, ran aground 87 yards from shore on the east side. All 14 on board were rescued. Both ships are more than 50 years old and were carrying 62,000 barrels of oil in total, TASS reported. A certificate seen by Reuters showed the third tanker was part of the same ageing fleet. Authorities said a local state of emergency had been declared at settlements in Temruk district and one village in Anapa district because of spilled oil on the shoreline. Russia's Natural Resources and Ecology Ministry said on Monday the scale of the spillage was still not clear. The Kerch Strait is a key route for exports of Russian grain and fuel products.